No fear, the company will be able to pay the dividend approved by shareholders just 2 weeks ago and still meet its obligations related to the spill. The Transocean chart looking a lot like the BP chart. Again, the president has arrived on the Gulf Coast, and we expect to hear from him in the next hour. Guys.
All right, thanks, Scott. So we asked the question, is there really anything President Obama and the government can do? Joining us to discuss, we have Alicia Menendez. She's a senior advisor, New Democrat Network. And also with us is GOP consultant Phil Musser. Alicia, start with you. Listen, he can't run the BP operation. He can't run the top kill. I understand that. But he hadn't done a thing. The White House, the administration, hadn't done a thing to help defend the shoreline from the spill. They basically let 5 weeks go by, have they not? Isn't that the breakdown in the Obama argument?
No, I mean, I think they've deployed as many resources as they could deploy. He's done a good job of taking responsibility for where things have been less than perfect. And on top of that, already today you have Admiral Allen lending support to Louisiana to make sure that their coast doesn't end up covered in oil. I think they have done what they can do, and I also think they've taken responsibility for where they have done less than a good job.
NOAA has an emergency plan that could have been triggered. They could have gone to the boats, the fire boom. None of that was done. Governor Bobby Jindal's been asking for help to get boats. He can't get any, Alicia. Now, come on. This is stuff that the White House should be overseeing, and they've been recalcitrant, have they not?
I mean, I simply disagree. I think this is a much bigger question of technology, of mismanagement, of oversight. And I think, we're going to see in 48 hours whether or not this top kill will work. The entire conversation could change between now and then. But I do think the administration has been there every step of the way.
It's been 37 days since the accident, and it's not getting any better, really. Phil, I want to ask you, I mean, to what extent are we seeing parallels being drawn between this administration's response to this accident and what we saw with the Bush administration's response to the Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Alicia's right. I think all Americans hope we get this thing put to bed. And the bottom line is that if it gets capped over the weekend as we head into Memorial Day, the long-term political implications and damage to President Obama will be mitigated. But he now owns this problem in a fundamental way. And what I think Americans saw with respect to President Bush and Katrina is they looked at their president and made a judgment that there was a competence and a management problem there. This week has been a terrible week for President Obama, inasmuch as the problems for him have come from, frankly, his own party. That moment when James Carville looked at the camera and said, "Where are you? Get down here." That was somewhat of a defining moment in this public relations crisis.
Yep.
So the White House needs to move quickly.
What can they do? When you say he owns this problem, what can Obama do from here?
Well, I think that's why he's there. The kinds of things that Larry talked about in the intro need to be deployed with full force, because if the government is viewed, and this comes against the time where there's great skepticism in our country about the institutions of government, and frankly, President Obama is arguing for a larger role for government in our country. If the government can't step in, can't fix this problem, this will become a political problem of epic proportions for this president.
See, Alicia, my point is that the president, I know he cannot control the top kill, Alicia. I appreciate that. But he's waited a month to mobilize the forces to protect the shoreline, which is really going to get slammed, has already started to get slammed, and it may go up through past right up the East Coast. He has waited. We have lost 5 valuable weeks by not executing any of the emergency plans. And I think President Obama has to own that, Alicia. I think that is his Katrina moment.
Larry, I think people share your frustration. I got to agree with Phil, though, that at that point it's more about the optics of it. I think most Americans agree that the president was acting in good faith, that he was doing what he could do, that this is largely outside of his control. But the conversation I think we're having here is not about big government and small government. It's about smart, effective government. And part of the reason we ended up in this mess is because MMS was acting stupidly. So I think it's time to shift that conversation away from, do we want more government intervention? Do we want the government? No, we want the government to act wisely. And I think in the next few days we're going to have actions that will allow us to determine if they are in fact doing that.
I mean, everyone seems to be passing the buck here. BP's not making a great job of it. The government says they don't have any better technology than BP. Is there the possibility for a third party to come in here, someone else, another country, another company that's had experience with this, Phil?
Well, I think that the Obama administration should send out an APB to the world here saying we're welcome and open to all ideas and all all solutions. I mean, Bobby Jindal, the governor of the state, has been calling for essentially an offshore beachhead to block the oil from coming in, and perhaps, you know,
that's what's missing, Phil. That's what's been missing for 5 weeks. Is exactly what you described.
What is missing is definitive action, and I think if President Obama, if this well is capped over the weekend, the long-term problem probably mitigates for the president. If it doesn't work, though, Larry.